The session on the sport modules, including sport entries, will be presented by Johan Voranger, WIS Team Chief Executive Officer, and it will last about 35 minutes, followed by a Q&A session at the end. I wish you a good time while listening to Johan, and I leave him the floor to introduce the key objective of the session and demonstrate how event words can be used to manage sport activities.
Yes, hello everybody. So the purpose of this presentation is to see a little bit more about what EventWorks does for sport event. So there are several sport modules and several features. We have about 35 minutes. So we are going to give you an overview of the system. We won't be able to cover everything. We will just cover a couple of features, mostly team registrations, accreditations, and badge printing. What we decided to leave out specifically are volunteers and workforce, as well as ticketing. These two subjects will be covered later on. So if we can go back 2 slides. So in terms of team registration, we will see that on an NOC perspective, on an IF perspective, so how to register people and teams individually, in bulk, how to do shortlisting, how we manage communications and reporting. Then on the next slide, covering accreditation, we will see a little bit about the setup with the matrix privileges, how to set up badges, how to assign accreditation individually in bulk, and how to manage access rights. So now I'm going to share my screen, just 1 second. Share we just a sec. Share desktop. So presenting, and here you should see my screen here. So here I'm logged in an event called Sports Demo, which is a setup that we have prepared for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just interrupt you, please? Could you increase a bit the size of your screen, please?
You mean Zoom?
Yeah.
Just a sec. This should be better.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, here we are using for team registration what we call our partners modules. So partners are delegations or people managing groups of people. We have defined here 2 types of partners, which are NOCs and IF. And we are going to see you these 2 different perspectives. What you see here is fully customizable by you, meaning that there is no development that was required for this demo. So here I'm going to use a function login as partner, which means that I'm going to impersonate the NOC of Switzerland. So if I was the NOC of Switzerland, the screen that I would see is this one, which is basically my home screen. So let's see a little bit what is here. The top part is basically some text and links, so that as the NOC of Switzerland, I can download different documents that I will need for this event. That is the first part. And again, it is something that you configure by yourself. Then second part, we will see when there's a little bit more data, is different reports that you create that are per contact, meaning that the NOC of Switzerland will see their own report. If you take an IF like FIBA or FIVB, they will see their own reports that are only related to their own sports. And these reports here, they can download them anytime. It's always live data, and you can manage them by yourself. Second part here is the different allotments that the NOC Switzerland has. So what we have defined here is that the NOC Switzerland is allowed to have 4 team officials that are basically free and paid by the organizing committee. They can have an unlimited number of additional team officials because basically they're paying for them. And they have at the moment 19 athletes, and 6 of them are shortlisted. We will see these buttons here in a short while. What you see here then is the list of everybody that is connected to this event here. You have a search feature. So if I was looking for the chef de mission, I type chef, and I see Gwendoline as a team official and chef de mission. So you can find any data that is here. And this report here is fully customizable. We will show you a little bit how to do it. As a member of the delegation of Switzerland, I can register people based on the categories that are here. I can either add them individually or add them in a bulk using import template that you as the organizing committee manage. So let's start with a simple way by adding a new participant. So here I have a choice. Am I registering an additional team official, an athlete, or a team official? I'm going to register a team official. So I click on continue. I have a function. So this is going to be a coach. Functions are dynamic and can be managed by categories, meaning that you can have different functions for team official, additional team official, technical delegates, and so on. So here I'm going to add a coach, and I'm going to add my sister. I'm going to put Switzerland, and here I'm going to put 29/07/2005. Oops. Okay, I can, and here this brings one of the features that you will see later on in the session about calculated field, meaning that here we added custom rules that checks dynamically the date that is here, so that at the time of the event, the athletes must be 16 years old. And what we can do as well is have it managed by country. That's an example we had for the YOG in Lausanne for the volunteers, where depending on which country you were from, like Switzerland, or France, it was 16 years old at the start of the event, and other countries, it was 18. So here, I'm just going to put 20. Okay, an email, I can put a picture, and here I'm just going to save, and I have a new registration in the system. So here, if I type Tanya, she is in the system. Now, if you wanted to add like a whole team or delegation, you have an import feature. Here, I am going to take an Excel spreadsheet. So here we define a template that you can download. To save a bit of time, I have already filled in a template that looks like this, with the fields in red that are mandatory. So here, what I do is that I take my template, I drag it here. I'm going to add athletes, and I'm going to import them. What the system does here is that there is a validation, meaning that on my Excel spreadsheet, there is someone for whom I forgot to enter the gender. It means that this person will not be imported. So I type on import participant, and here, number of person to import 16, successfully added 15, and 1 error. So now I have my team that is a little bit extended. You can see that there are a lot more people here, and I see them here. So if I type basketball, you can see a couple of new peoples that are here. So once you have all of your people here, you have a part that we call allotment, which is basically how many people you can get. This is also managed by EventWorks. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to my partners, and I'm going to go to my sport quota. And here I'm going to select Switzerland, and per sport, I define how many athletes or team officials I can have. So here I can have 8 female for basketball, 8 male, 4 for fencing, 11 for football, and 9 for volleyball. So going back here, I can do what we call the shortlisting. Shortlisting can be done in two different ways, meaning that if I take volleyball, I can have a plus here that will put an icon saying move to shortlist. I can do it individually here, and I have shortlisted 1 person. I can do it in group here by selecting multiple people and saying move to shortlist. Or I can have a screen that is a little bit more visual here, where I can select my sport, let's say volleyball. I can see all the gender, or just the male or the female. I can see my allotment, how many people I'm supposed to have, and I can take people here that I drag there. So here my totals update in real time, and I have an overview of what is my status and what am I doing here. So that is the perspective I see here. Let me just go back home. And now I'm going to go to the details of an athlete, meaning that now that this athlete has been shortlisted, I have different information that comes that are sport specific. So here he is playing volleyball. He has been shortlisted. So now he has other specific information like a license number, a uniform color, a position offensive, a position defensive, and a height, which are information that are going to be provided to your timing and scoring partner using either an export from our system or an API where they can connect and get that information. So here I'm just going back home. So here you have the perspective as an NOC. If I go to volleyball, I can have a report here that I download. Let me just open it here. And this is the information that I have here that is available at any time by the NOC, and that will always be up to date. Now let's go to a second type of vision that you have. I'm going back to the partners, and now I'm the FIVB. So what I'm doing as the FIVB, if someone could pick up the phone, okay, good. I'm going to copy the link that is here and open a new page in Firefox. And what an IF would see is this view here. meaning that I haven't put any document for them to download. They have two different reports, an athlete's report and a technical official report, because they can register, the FIVB can register 5 technical officials. And you see here the athletes that have been shortlisted. And we have activated a process where the IF can validate or reject athletes. And all these processes are fully customizable. Let me give you an example here. You have the view that the IF has here, and I would like to edit it because, frankly speaking, at this stage of the process, the registration ID, I don't really care, but I would love to have the gender and the date of birth. So what I'm doing here is that I'm going to open a new tab. I have a welcome report for the IF. Let me just move that little screen here. Welcome report for the IF. I'm going to edit it. And here I'm going to remove this field. I'm going to add the gender. And I'm going to add the date of birth. I save. And if I refresh my page as an IF, the information that I see now is updated with the gender and the date of birth. So basically, this is just to show you how customizable the system is and how we can tailor it to join and meet kind of any process we have. Instead of having the approach saying, this is how our registration process works, now you have to work with your organization to meet it, we can really on the fly customize and tailor the product for your own need. And we can have separate details form for every IF or NOCs. Now, going back here to my sport demo, what I am going to do here is use what we call our document module. Let me take my brother here. We have action that you can do as the NOC, and one of the action is send an email. So what I'm doing here is sending an eligibility form, which is a form that the athletes must sign in order to register. So what I'm doing is that I'm pre-filling the form with the data that is in the system. And as a representative of the NOC of Switzerland, I can send it either to myself or send it to the participant. So now I'm just sending it to myself just to show you the result. It's going to take a couple of seconds for me to receive an email. Let me just open this and refresh the page. It's going to take a couple of seconds. Okay, and here I have my email, and in my email I have an eligibility form that has been already pre-filled in with all the data here, and that the athletes must sign and scan. What the system also did here in terms of process is that if I go to the details, the fact that I changed this form triggered an additional tab that appeared here called Document Upload. And it means that basically I can then upload the form that has been signed so that I can manage it from within the system and having all the information in the same spot. So there are a lot more features and things we can show you about this, but as we have lots of other things to see about sport, I'm going to stop here for this part, and we of course available of the webinar to show you a little bit how to configure it and what is working in the back of it. But everything that is here has been fully configured by us, meaning that it's configuration work, and it is things that we can train you to do so. If you take the road to Tokyo with the boxing qualifier, the entire process that is here, it is Neo who is on the call, who just designed it completely by herself. So we really design it so that you can manage it. I'm just going to log out of here and go a little bit about accreditations. Okay, so accreditation, let me first go to my participant here and open, again, we're in orange, which is settings and general settings. So you start by setting up your days of accreditation. When are you going to manage accreditation? If you want to use our access control system, if you want to have timed accreditation, manage venue, and manage approval status. Then you create your matrix. You have an example of matrix here. These are basically all the different kind of people who are coming to your event, and you will use that then to manage the privileges. So here we have NOC, we have the organizing committee, the media, the LOC. Next part is the setup. This is what is going to appear on your accreditation. What we did with this is that we built it in a completely flexible way, meaning that any line that is here, like zone 2, 3, 4, 6, if it's a blue, red, or if you have access to the competition area or to the training area, it is just event works field. So just by creating a new field, saying this is an accreditation field, it will appear here and you can start managing it. And for every field, you define if it's a privilege, like zone 2, 3, 4, 6, or T1, T2, T3, or if it is a venue like the competition area, or if it's what we call the dates, like if you create an accreditation type for the qualification phase or for the final phase or for the pre-event phase. And the information here is what is going to be displayed on the accreditation. Then the next step, we take the matrix that we have created, we take the privileges that we have here, and we put them together. So here I'm going to see for the organizing committee, for the staff, I'm going to give them red and zone 2 and 3. This means that every time someone has an accreditation with this function here, by default, he will have these privileges that are here. And you can then change them, of course, on a person-by-person basis or by group. I'm just going to save here. Daily access, I'm going to skip because it works in the same principle and I did not set it up yet. And you do the same for the venue, meaning here I'm going to give access to the competition area, but as the management, I have no reason to go to the training zone. So here, in terms of accreditation setup, we are kind of done. Last part about setup is defining the badges. So here, still in setting, I go to badge template. I'm going to delete that one because I'm going to show you the real thing. So create badge template. I'm going to use an A6 accreditation. I can create my own dimensions, but using a predefined one saves a lot of time. So here I'm going to name this one demo accred. You have your dimensions portrait. It's an accreditation badge. It is going to be active. I'm saving. And here you have your designer that is here and ready to design your A6 accreditation. To make it a little bit easier, I'm going to activate a grid here. I'm going to start by adding a custom image. It is it is going to be a banner. Okay, I'm going to add the photo of the person. I'm going to put it here like this. I'm going to add a QR code that I'm going to put here. I'm going to add the first name. So first name that I'm going to put here, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I don't like this font. I'm going to use Roboto size 16. I'm going to add the last name here. I'm just going to add a couple of fields because the plan is not to spend too much time on this Roboto 16. I'm going to add here a dynamic element which will be the accreditation type. So here I type, and I'm going to make it so that it's going to take the accreditation color. So here I'm going to make it a little bit bigger here. I'm going to use accreditation color. I'm going to use Roboto. I'm going to make it size 24. And I'm going to make it center. So here, this is looking pretty nice. I'm going to add two other elements. The first one here is what I'm going to call blue, meaning that if I am if I have a blue accreditation, this is going to be displayed in blue. So here I'm gonna put I'm going to put a bright blue here with just 1 second, and here. Okay, and the last one that I'm going to add here is a zone 2. So here I'm going to put a 2. This is going to be the Accred zone 2. It's going to be white. Okay, it's going to come here, and then we are going to be ready to show how it works. Centered, and I'm going to put it here. So here I have an accreditation template, a basic one that is ready. Let's go to a participant. I'm going to find myself as a participant here. I have a tab called Accreditations. I'm going to assign an accreditation, which will be this one. I didn't save the previous part. This is why it didn't give that, but I'm going to give myself access to blue zone 2. I'm going to save this accreditation, and here I cannot print it. It's grayed out because I have defined an approval process. So here I'm going to approve it because I'm a super admin, which means that now I can create this badge here. It's going to be a preview, and EventWorks is going to generate my accreditation. So this doesn't look super fancy, but basically it's to show you how in a couple of minutes you can design your own accreditation that is full of dynamic elements. We work a lot in accreditation with rights and privileges to define who can do what exactly. And in fact, the first client with whom we went very far in terms of privilege allocation for accreditation was FIVB 2 years ago. And since then, we have improved it quite a bit. So what I'm going to do here is go to user roles. And here I have created a role called Accred Functional Manager. So For every type of user, you define everything that they can do. And here you define extremely precisely what they are allowed to do, meaning that this user will only be able to see accreditation who have been shortlisted and validated, and can only attribute these codes of accreditation. He cannot approve any accreditation. He can edit accreditation for these categories here, and he only sees people who have access to the competition area. So using basically these filters, and here I have a typo, using basically these filters here and JSON command, you have a full control over who can do what, meaning that you can have zone manager saying that if I'm in charge of this venue, I can approve people staying at this venue. Another person is in charge of another venue. And this is all configurable from the interface that is here. So let's go to a report here. I have created the first report called accreditation. So here I can take a couple of people and do group action, assign accreditation, and say that this person will be accredited as athletes. What you can do also is have this value attributed by default based on the registration process. So doing that is basically not a problem. I'm going to reload the page and this is updated. I can also manage people in a group. For instance, let me show them here. I'm taking my accreditation which has been set up, and I'm saying that these 4 people here are working on my team. So instead of having to do them one by one, I can go to group action and I can do copy accreditation. So basically, I'm taking the value from Johan Voranger and assigning it to the 5 other delegates, meaning that if in the users and roles you have the feature which is called a resource to be able to copy accreditation, you will have that. And if you have the right to attribute this exact category of accreditation, this is something that you will be able to do as well. The report that is here is also fully customizable, meaning that it's my accreditation report. You have the different fields that are here. And here, you can just modify them the way you want it, meaning that here I'm going to go back to the report, find my accreditation. We can see that it was approved today at 2:32, and that it was approved by myself. I have created another accreditation report called Accreditation Details that basically gives, okay, I zoomed out the screen, so I'm a little bit out of space. That basically gives all the information based on the privileges, who is blue, who has zone 2, 3, 4, 6, so that you have a more visual view of what is happening. And in terms of accreditation, we're working on an update where you will be able to directly edit information on the cells here from the report. So in terms of registration and accreditation, that's what I wanted to show. Let me just go to the details of my registration. We have also, as you have seen in previous demonstration, you also have a full change tracking system, meaning that if I type blue, you can see which user modified which information and when. So every change that is happening in the system, if it is the NOC who registered someone, if it is the IF who entered the license number, who validated, rejected registration, if the accreditation has been overwritten by a user, who printed it, how many times it was printed. Everything is logged and tracked in the system. If I have a show log, I have, for instance, I have an approval log here, and I have a badge printing log. And what the system does also is that we can restrict reprint of an accreditation, and we can allow reprint and say only the accreditation manager is allowed to reprint an existing accreditation. So there are lots of other things that we can talk about or show you in terms of details and how it works. But this basically covers the basic. And the point of this demo was really to show you that what is here is something unique because it has been designed to be flexible and to empower you to adapt, tailor the system, and to make it meet your requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Johan. We do have a couple of questions in the chat, starting with a question from Kirsty. Do we have to use a QR code generated by the system, or is it possible to use a venue access code provided by stadium or venues?
Okay, you can use an external code. This is a new feature that we implemented last year, meaning that if you have what we call a key field like a registration ID or any number to make a match, you can import your own code into the system and use them. And in terms of, so we can display QR code, we can display barcodes, and in terms of access control, you can use the two of them, or you can use RFID if you want on your mobile device. RFID is something new that we implemented end of last year. You're welcome, Kirsty.
Another one, are badges and printed on white paper or on paper with logo? On which size paper?
Okay.
Any code is required afterwards, etc., etc.
Okay, what we do here, our default setup in EventWorks is that we try to be printer agnostic, meaning that the output we usually generate is a PDF file that can be printed on any printer. What we do most of the time is that we have two accreditation templates. One that is designed to work on pre-printed paper, and one that also contains all the graphics and artwork, so that if on a venue or an accreditation center you run out of paper, you're basically not stuck saying, okay, what am I going to do right now? You can still print accreditation. So we can really work with both. In the template that I showed you, I used the A6. What Neo here did for the boxing task force is that she made extremely nice accreditation that were an A5 piece of paper that was folded in two and then laminated. And on the back, you had all the terms and condition and explanations about the meaning of the different code. So she really did an amazing job with this, and we're really not limited. What we also do, and we do that for the accreditation badges, for the visitor system, for the European Commission, is that we integrate directly to a printer they have at the reception, meaning that we do not generate any PDF file. We connect straight to the printer, send the instruction to print the document, and then remove it. So if for some reason you do not want to use a PDF file, this is also possible. Another feature that we're implementing next week, we're testing it right now, is what we call print at home. So it's much more designed for government or corporate events where you create an accreditation badge, you validated it, and you can attach it to an email.
Thank you, Johan. Just continuing on the badge and the accreditation side of it, is the system taking into account a background check process?
This is something again that we are doing for the European Commission, because they have a database of people who are what they call on a grey list and on a blacklist, meaning that then it is process that we integrate into the application. What it does is that if you register someone and that person is on a grey list, the system will generate an email alert to any email that you specify. And it's up to you to define what are the matching criteria to define if it's a match or not a match. What we did in that case is that we took 5 criteria, which were the first name, the last name, the date of birth, the passport number, and the nationality. That is 6. What we define is that if 4 out of the 6 criteria are matched, this person is flagged. So again, it is something that we can do internally, meaning using our CRM, you can define what we call the blacklist and the grey list, or we can do it as part of the integration process using our API where you already have a data source. And during the validation process, we would connect to it to do a check. And if there is a match or not, we would act accordingly. If we do that, there is probably a little bit of development / integration to connect with the data source and with the system that you have internally.
Thank you, Johan. We'll take a last question, and if any other question rise afterwards, we'll take them off webinar. The last one would it be possible to show us how we could have an entry that links to accommodation information or to transport information?
That is possible, but it's more something I would need to show out of this webinar here, because I haven't planned it in the process. I would need to have a little bit more details about it, meaning that is it the NOC who is entering an arrival date and a departure date during the import process for a group of people? Is it a wish check-in, wish check-out, and wish room type that we link to our accommodation module? I would need to know a little bit more about it. There are things that we can already do quite well now, and there are other elements, most specifically in terms of accommodation, that we are working on, which are basically blocking room allotment for a specific delegation and then having the delegation manage his own allotment and saying this athlete is staying with this athlete in that night from that date to that date. This is something that we are working on at the moment, and it's in our development schedule for this summer.
Thank you, Johan. What I suggest, in fact, is that we organize a special demo on that point with the person we have requested, and we have noted that in the chat. I think we'll have to close down this session. I hope you learn a new feature that you will be able to implement while using EventWorks in the future. If you want to attend the next session, it will be on calculated feed and will start in about 13 minutes. So please leave this session and connect with the other link. I would like to thank you all again for your intense participation, and we look forward to seeing you at the next session, or very shortly for the one who are not attending the next session. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for attending.